Before color-coded bins and modern minimalism, there were simple homekeeping secrets older generations relied on, quiet rituals that kept houses peaceful long before decluttering became a trend. And strangely, those forgotten old methods, the ones born in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, work better for life after 60 than anything sold to us today. They weren't about perfection or matching containers. They were about creating a home that felt steady, welcoming, and easy to live in. My name is Norabeth Green. I'm 72, from a quiet town in Ohio, and I was raised in a home where nothing was wasted and everything had a purpose. My parents didn't follow trends, they followed rhythms, simple habits that made our home feel warm and orderly without effort. For years, I carried those memories with me without realizing how much I depended on them. Then one morning, I stood in my own hallway and felt a quiet heaviness, the sense that my home had become filled with things I no longer connected to. It didn't feel like a reflection of who I was anymore. That moment made me return to the old ways I grew up with. Not minimalism. Not Pinterest. Just the gentle, dependable habits my parents and grandparents lived by, and bringing those habits back changed everything for me after 60. Method 1. The Washday Sorting Method. 1940s-1950s tradition. Weekly laundry day was also the day households sorted belongings. Keep clean, amend, toss, pass along. I adapted that rhythm for clutter. When I think back to my childhood, wash day wasn't just about clothes. It was the heartbeat of the home, steady, predictable, and comforting in a way I didn't appreciate until much later in life. Every Monday morning, before the kettle even began to whistle, my mother would move through the house with a quiet sense of purpose. She'd pick up anything that looked worn, neglected, or simply out of rhythm with the rest of the space. A faded tea towel, a salt shaker with a loose lid, a sock without its pair, a dish that never seemed to dry properly, everything found its way into the washday circle. What fascinated me, even as a child, was how unhurried she was. There was no frantic gathering, no guilt, no dramatic purges. It was simply a weekly ritual, one she learned from her own mother, who lived through the Great Depression and believed deeply that everything deserved a fair assessment before being kept. That mindset carried into the 4 simple categories she used: keep clean, mend, toss, pass along. These 4 piles were small in words but enormous in wisdom. Keep clean meant the item still contributed to everyday life, it earned its place. Mend reflected the old belief that most things could be rescued with a little care, whether it was stitching a hem, re-gluing a handle, or tightening a loose screw. Toss wasn't about wastefulness, it was about honesty. And pass along was the quiet generosity that defined so many families back then. The idea that an unused pot, a book you'd finished, or a spare set of mittens could brighten someone else's day. When I reached my 60s, the world around me had shifted. Decluttering became a trend. People filmed themselves emptying entire rooms in an afternoon. Experts told me to get rid of anything that didn't spark joy, and that felt far too shallow for a lifetime of memories. My belongings weren't clutter to me, they were chapters. And that's when I remembered Washday. Instead of forcing myself to empty closets or tackle whole rooms, I began gathering small handfuls of items, a drawer's worth, a shelf's worth, or whatever I could comfortably carry. And I applied the same old rhythm: keep clean, mend, toss, pass along. For the first time in years, letting go didn't feel like losing pieces of my past. It felt like tending to my home with the same gentle respect my mother once showed. Washday sorting works especially well for seniors because it never overwhelms. You don't climb ladders, haul boxes, or make dozens of decisions at once. You let the old rhythm guide you. One item at a time. One choice at a time. And even the emotional pieces become easier to approach because the method itself is familiar. It belongs to an era of steadiness, patience, and care. The surprising thing is how empowering the mend and pass along piles become. When I drop something into mend, I feel hopeful, not burdened. And when I place something in pass along, I feel connected, like I'm part of a bigger circle of giving that has existed for generations. The method isn't fast, and it isn't flashy, but it's real. It respects who we are, where we've been, and the homes we're trying to reclaim. And in the quietest way, Washday sorting has helped me rebuild a home that feels light, peaceful, and truly lived in, not just filled. Method 2. The company is coming sweep. Old hospitality rule from the 1950s. Before guests arrived, families did one quick walkthrough and removed anything out of place. I use the same old rule today. In the 1950s, nothing stirred a house into motion faster than the words, "Company is coming." Those three little words carried more power than any organizing book sold today. The moment they were spoken, the entire household shifted into a gentle but purposeful rhythm. My mother didn't panic, and she didn't empty rooms into trash bags. Instead, she would take one calm walk through the house with fresh eyes, noticing things we had stopped seeing because they had been sitting in the same place for too long. A newspaper left open on the sofa. A pair of slippers tucked halfway under a chair. A jar of buttons on the windowsill. A comb forgotten on the table. That quiet scan was enough to reset the whole home. The beauty of the company is coming sweep was its simplicity. It wasn't decluttering in the modern sense. No one dumped out drawers or rearranged closets. It was about restoring dignity and harmony to the space, so the home felt welcoming. My mother always said, "A home doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to feel cared for." That mindset became the heart of the sweep. When I reached the stage of life where items had gradually collected in every corner, birthday cards I meant to reread, odds and ends from projects I never finished, gifts I didn't know where to place, I remembered that old hospitality rule. I realized I didn't need a complicated system. I needed a fresh pair of eyes, the same way my mother used hers whenever someone pulled into the driveway unannounced. So I revived the company is coming sweep for my own decluttering. I don't wait for visitors. I walk through my home as if someone I love is about to step inside. Not to impress them, but to notice the things I've grown blind to. The stack of magazines I haven't touched, the mail that wandered from the entryway to the kitchen counter, the vase I've been meaning to empty and clean, the extra blankets taking up the armchair. When I see these things through the lens of hospitality, the decisions become gentler and clearer. I'm not judging myself. I'm simply preparing my home to feel welcoming again. This old method works wonders for seniors because it's quick, it's light on energy, and it doesn't stir up emotional overwhelm. It doesn't ask you to tackle closets or confront decades of memories all at once. It focuses on the living spaces, the places where you spend your day, where you breathe, where you rest. Those spaces deserve ease and harmony, and seeing them through imagined company helps you choose what belongs and what creates noise. Sometimes my sweep takes just 5 minutes. Sometimes it becomes a slow, thoughtful walk that reveals a handful of items ready to leave my home. Either way, it brings back a sense of pride, the same feeling our parents and grandparents had when they prepared their homes, not out of stress, but out of care. Following this old rule has softened my home in the most unexpected way. It reminds me that clutter doesn't always require a big overhaul. Sometimes all it takes is a walk, a breath, and the question, if someone stepped inside right now, what small thing would I want to put back in its place? That single question has gently reshaped my home, one sweep at a time. Method 3. The kitchen table decide all. 1930s and 1960s. Farmtown tradition. All important decisions happened at the kitchen table, so that's where I make decluttering decisions too. In the farm towns of the 1930s through the 1960s, the kitchen table was more than a place to eat. It was the command center of the entire home. Arguments were settled there, bills were paid there, recipes were exchanged there, and every major decision, from buying a new plow to choosing a school, was talked through at that table. The kitchen table had a kind of authority to it. When something was placed in the center, the family understood. It was time to look at it honestly. Growing up, I watched my parents use that table like a compass. If something in the house didn't have a clear purpose, it went straight to the kitchen table for discussion. A knick-knack someone gifted us, a tool that wasn't quite broken but not quite useful, a letter that needed a response, everything was sorted out under the soft glow of the overhead light. At that table, my parents took their time. They didn't rush or toss things impulsively. They believed decisions made while sitting down, with both feet on the floor, were steadier and more thoughtful. As I grew older and my home began to fill with decades of belongings, mementos, papers, gadgets, extras of all kinds, I realized that my decluttering failed whenever I tried to do it on the go. Standing in a hallway, rummaging through a drawer, moving from room to room, it all felt too scattered. Too emotional. Too chaotic. Then I remembered the old family rule: if you're not sure about something, take it to the table. That memory brought me back to a method I didn't know I desperately needed. Now, when I declutter, I bring items, just a small batch at a time, to the kitchen table. Not the whole cupboard, not the whole drawer. Just what my hands can comfortably carry. I place them in the center of the table, sit down, and breathe. Sitting changes everything. It slows the mind. It grounds the heart. It turns a stressful decision into a calm, almost ceremonial moment. At the table, I can see each item clearly. I can hold it, turn it over, and ask myself simple questions without pressure. Do I still use this? Does it add something good to my days? Am I keeping it out of guilt? Would it serve someone else better? What makes this method powerful for seniors is that it removes the physical strain and emotional rush that come from trying to declutter in the middle of a cluttered room. The kitchen table acts like neutral territory. Items lose their emotional grip when they're not sitting in the spot they've occupied for years. And because the table has always been a place of clarity, the decisions feel more balanced, more respectful, and less overwhelming. Sometimes I sort only 3 items. Sometimes 10. Sometimes I sip tea and take my time. There's no race. The table gives each decision space. I've also found that the act of returning an item to its room, or choosing not to, feels more intentional after deciding from a seated, steady place. And if something needs to go to the pass-along box or the trash, I don't hesitate because the decision was made with care, not impulse. Using the kitchen table as my decision zone has transformed decluttering from a chore into a comforting ritual. It connects me to the way my parents lived, slow, thoughtful, and grounded. And little by little, item by item, it has given my home a calmer heartbeat, just like the homes I grew up in. Method 4. The Wintering Down Method. Rural American practice from the 40s-50s. Homes were simplified before winter to make life easier. I ask myself, would this item help me if I had to winter down again? In rural America during the 1940s and 50s, the arrival of winter wasn't just a change in seasons, it was a shift in the entire way a household operated. People didn't wait until the snow came to get ready. Preparations began weeks in advance, and every corner of the home was evaluated with one question in mind: will this help us get through the winter? Wintering down wasn't about survival alone. It was about making life easier, safer, and more peaceful during the long, cold months when daylight was short, roads were icy, and energy needed to be conserved. I remember my parents moving room by room, checking everything with a kind of gentle seriousness. Extra blankets were aired out, tools were stored properly, and anything unnecessary or awkwardly placed was removed so no one would stumble in the dark. My mother always said that winter had a way of revealing what truly mattered. If an item didn't serve a purpose, whether practical, emotional, or comforting, it had no place taking up precious space. Winter demanded simplicity. It demanded wisdom. And it demanded that the home be arranged for ease, not clutter. As I grew older and my home filled with the belongings of decades, I found myself craving that same clarity. Modern life creates a different kind of winter, not with snowbanks and wood stoves, but with health changes, energy shifts, and seasons of life when I simply need things to be easier. So I revived the Wintering Down method, not as a seasonal ritual, but as a guiding principle for decluttering. Now, when I pick up an item, whether it's a decorative piece, a kitchen tool, an old gift, or something that's been sitting untouched for years, I ask myself a simple question: would this help me if I had to winter down again? And what I mean by winter isn't just cold weather. I mean times when mobility is limited, when emotional energy is low, when I need my home to support me rather than demand effort from me. If the item makes life smoother, safer, or warmer, it stays. If it creates hassle, takes up space, or belongs to a version of myself from decades ago, it gently leaves my home. This question works beautifully for seniors because it shifts the focus from guilt to practicality. Instead of asking, should I keep this? I ask, would this serve me in a season when I need simplicity the most? It removes the emotional pressure and replaces it with compassion. Items that are difficult to maintain, heavy, or awkward suddenly don't feel worth the trouble. Objects that create visual noise lose their appeal. And things tied to a past chapter feel less necessary when I consider the woman I am now. One of the most powerful parts of this method is how it honors comfort. During winter, people valued coziness, soft blankets, warm lights, easy-to-reach essentials. Applying that same mindset today helps me create a home where I can move freely and rest easily. A home that feels ready for whatever season of life comes next. Wintering down isn't about having less, it's about having what truly supports you. Using this old rural wisdom has helped me let go of items I once felt obligated to keep, and it has brought a sense of peace to the spaces I use every day. It reminds me that ease is not a luxury, it's a need. And every time I release something that doesn't belong to my winter, my home becomes a little lighter, a little kinder, and a little more prepared for the seasons ahead. Method 5. The borrowed drawer test. 50s/60s neighbor tradition. Neighbors borrowed empty drawers or crates to sort their belongings. I empty one drawer completely as if lending it away, only essentials return. In the 1950s and 60s, neighbors helped each other in ways that seem almost unimaginable today. Borrowing wasn't limited to cups of sugar or a gardening tool. People loaned out whatever was needed, a wooden crate for gathering apples, an empty drawer for sorting letters, even a spare box for storing winter clothes. In those days, households rarely had extra containers lying around, so communities shared. If someone needed to sort belongings, they'd ask a neighbor, "Do you have a drawer I can borrow for a bit?" And without hesitation, that drawer would be handed over, emptied and ready. That simple act created a powerful principle. If you were willing to hand a drawer to someone else, you had to clear it completely first. You couldn't just shuffle things around or hide clutter underneath. You had to take everything out, look at each piece, and decide what truly earned its way back into your home. That borrowed drawer wasn't meant to hold your maybes or your forgotten items. It was meant to hold only what belonged. Years later, when my own drawers began to fill with a mixture of essentials, maybes, someday items, and things I didn't even remember owning, it became easy to ignore the clutter because it stayed tucked away. Drawers hide our indecision better than any other place in the house. They become quiet storage pockets for the things we don't want to face. One day, remembering stories my mother used to tell about borrowing drawers from neighbors, something clicked. I didn't need more organizing tools. I needed that old practice of clearing a drawer completely, as if someone else needed to borrow it from me. So I created the borrowed drawer test. I choose one drawer, not a whole dresser, not a whole desk, just one drawer. And I imagine a neighbor standing in front of me saying, "Could I borrow this for a day?" With that simple question, the drawer must be emptied entirely. No shortcuts. No pushing things aside. Everything comes out onto a table or countertop, where I can see it clearly instead of letting it live hidden in the dark. Once the drawer is empty, I give myself a rule that mirrors the old-fashioned courtesy of lending something out, only essentials return. Only the items that truly serve me, fit my life today, and make sense in that drawer are allowed back in. Anything that causes hesitation or requires debate doesn't earn a spot. If I wouldn't proudly hand that drawer to a neighbor, then I shouldn't refill it with clutter. What makes this method especially helpful for seniors is that it simplifies the decision-making process. Instead of organizing around the clutter, you're working with a blank slate. The empty drawer gives your mind space to breathe. You're not juggling emotional attachments, functional items, and random bits all at once. You're simply choosing what deserves to come home again. Some items go to the pass-along basket. Some move to a better home within the house. Some, I realize, I don't need at all. And the drawer that once overflowed becomes a calm, functional space I can actually use. It's incredible how much clarity one empty drawer can bring. And the beauty of this old tradition is that it doesn't demand speed or perfection, just honesty. Every time I use the borrowed drawer test, I understand why our parents and grandparents lived with such ease. Their wisdom wasn't fancy. It was thoughtful. It was neighborly. And it worked. Clearing one drawer as if someone else needed it has helped me reclaim more peace than any modern organizing hack ever has. Method 6. The Sunday Best Rule. 1930s, 1970s. Families kept a few things meant for Sunday best. I apply that idea to possessions today. Only the items that feel like my Sunday best automatically stay. In the 1930s through the 1970s, the phrase Sunday best carried a very specific meaning. It wasn't just about clothing, it was a whole philosophy. Families kept one outfit, one coat, one pair of shoes, even certain dishes or linens that were reserved for Sundays, holidays, and truly special occasions. These weren't the most expensive things in the home, but they were the most respected. They were taken care of, stored neatly, and handled with intention. Everything else was for the rough and tumble of daily life. Growing up, I remember watching my mother lay out her Sunday dress on the ironing board the night before. She moved slower with those items, smoothing every crease with such gentleness that even as a child, I understood those pieces carried weight. We didn't have a lot, but the things we considered Sunday best were held in high regard because they aligned with our values, not our clutter. As the years passed and my home filled with more than I ever planned to own, I realized I had completely lost touch with that old idea. Back then, we didn't need a reason to keep something, the item itself told us. If it held meaning, if it carried pride, if it reflected the best parts of who we were, it belonged. Everything else was simply functional. Somewhere along the way, though, the lines blurred. Everything became accessible, replaceable, purchasable, and suddenly we had multiple versions of things without ever pausing to ask which ones truly mattered. So, I brought back the Sunday best rule. Not as a way of saving things for rare occasions, but as a way of deciding what earns space in my home today. When I pick up an item, a sweater, a pot, a picture frame, a piece of jewelry, even a book, I ask myself quietly, does this feel like my Sunday best? Not fancy, not expensive, but meaningful, carefully chosen, and reflective of who I am at this stage of my life. If the answer is yes, it stays without question. If it brings me pride, if it adds beauty or comfort, if it's something I would happily use in my best moments or give to someone I love, it earns its place. But if it feels like just another version of something I already have, or something I've kept out of habit rather than affection, then it becomes easier to let go. This method works beautifully for seniors because it doesn't force harsh decisions or demand empty shelves. Instead, it shifts the focus from getting rid of things to elevating the things that genuinely matter. It encourages you to surround yourself with belongings that lift your spirit rather than weigh you down. And since Sunday best items were always chosen with care, this approach creates a home that reflects your true self, not your storage habits. The emotional part of this rule surprised me. I found that many of the things I've kept for decades didn't make the cut, not because they lacked value, but because they no longer represented who I am now. Letting them go didn't feel like loss. It felt like respect. It allowed me to create space for objects that reflect my present life, my current joys, and the peaceful simplicity I want at this age. Bringing back the Sunday best mindset has helped me see my home through gentler eyes. It has transformed my shelves, closets, and rooms into spaces filled with intention rather than accumulation. It feels like honoring the wisdom I grew up with and letting it guide me toward a home that feels more like me every single day. Method 7. The passing basket tradition. A basket was passed around with small items others might need. I keep a basket by my door. One item each week goes in to be intentionally passed forward. In the 1940s through the 1960s, communities relied on each other in ways that feel almost foreign today. People didn't run to the store every time they needed something small. Instead, they shared. Churches, neighborhood circles, and even front porches became quiet hubs of exchange. Someone would place a basket at the end of a pew or on a stoop filled with small items others could use, an extra pair of gloves, spare buttons, a children's book that had been outgrown, a jar of homemade jam, even a sewing needle set. And the unspoken understanding was simple. Take what you need, add what you can, and keep the basket moving forward. That passing basket carried more than objects, it carried dignity, generosity, and connection. It prevented waste in an era when nothing was thrown away lightly, and it created a rhythm of giving that made everyone feel included. People didn't question the gesture because sharing was simply a part of life. If something in your home wasn't being used, it deserved to live somewhere it would be appreciated. When I entered my 60s, I found myself surrounded by items that were still good, still functional, still meaningful, but no longer meaningful to me. Gifts I never used, crafts I meant to start, dishes I only touched during holidays, scarves I stopped wearing, books I had read once and tucked away. None of it felt like clutter in the traditional sense, but it all weighed on me quietly. Letting these things go felt difficult until I remembered that old passing basket tradition. The memory of that basket warming cold hands, brightening someone's day, or simply offering convenience reminded me that everything has a life beyond my shelves. So I revived the tradition in the simplest way I could. I keep a basket by my front door. Once a week, just once, I choose one item to place inside. Not a pile, not a box, not 20 things at once. Just one thoughtful item. Something that still has value but no longer belongs in my everyday life. I tell myself, let this bring ease to someone else. Then I pass it forward, to a neighbor, a local community center, a friend, or anyone who might welcome it. There is something incredibly freeing about giving in small, steady doses. Seniors often wrestle with the emotional weight of letting go, especially when items carry memories. But the passing basket transforms decluttering from loss into generosity. It shifts the intention away from getting rid of things and towards sending things where they can be useful again. That reframing relieves guilt, lifts emotional pressure, and restores a sense of purpose to the process. This method is also wonderfully gentle. It doesn't demand speed or force big decisions. Just one item a week. One act of kindness. One moment of remembering that things are meant to be used, not stored. Over time, those small acts create meaningful change. Drawers feel lighter. Shelves breathe easier. And your home becomes filled only with what supports your life today. The passing basket has also brought unexpected joy back into my routines. Sometimes the person receiving the item shares a story or memory of their own. Sometimes it simply disappears into the stream of community, and I never know where it ends up, and that's perfectly fine. Because the heart of the tradition isn't about tracking where things go. It's about trusting they'll be useful to someone else. Keeping this old practice alive makes my decluttering feel rooted in something bigger than myself. It reminds me that a home isn't just a place we keep things, it's a place we keep love moving. And with every item I pass forward, my home feels a little clearer, a little lighter, and a little more connected to the world around me. Can still remember the exact morning when everything shifted. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that has weight to it, and the sun had just started slipping through the curtains in soft ribbons. I walked into my living room with a cup of tea, expecting the same sense of heaviness I'd grown used to over the years. The kind of heaviness that settles in your chest before you even realize why. But instead, something felt different. The room felt open, warmer, kinder, as if it had finally taken a deep breath after holding it in for far too long. I stood there for a moment, not touching anything, not adjusting a thing. I just observed. The corners that were once crowded now held only pieces that mattered. The surfaces, once hidden under layers of forgotten objects, now felt calm and intentional. And the air itself, felt lighter, as if the whole house had quietly rearranged itself to support the woman I had become, not the woman I had been decades ago. That was the first time in years that I felt my home was reflecting me again. Not my past versions, not my responsibilities, not my storage habits, but my present self. My 60-something self. My wiser, calmer, softer self. As I walked from room to room, I didn't feel overwhelmed. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel burdened. I felt welcomed, almost as if the house whispered, "You've returned." And the surprising thing? It didn't happen after a dramatic purge or a stressful cleaning marathon. It happened after embracing old habits, slow, familiar, comforting habits that honored the rhythms of the generations before me. Methods that didn't rush me. Methods that didn't shame me. Methods that helped me let go gently and keep what truly supported my life today. For the first time in a long while, my home felt like a companion instead of a collection. It held stories without trapping me in them. It held memories without weighing me down. It held space for who I am now. That morning, I realized something profound. A peaceful home isn't created through speed. It's created through intention. through choosing, one item at a time, what deserves to walk with you into the next chapter of your life. I felt proud of myself, not for having less, but for having what mattered. If any part of this touched you or reminded you of your own home, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Your experiences help others feel less alone, and we're building a gentle, supportive community here for everyone over 60 who wants life to feel lighter and more peaceful. Before you go, here's how you can hype this video and support this channel. Step 1. On your YouTube app, scroll down and swipe left on the comment preview carousel until you see the hype button. Step 2. Tap hype. Step 3. Choose how many points you want to give. Remember, smaller creators get a bigger bonus boost. Step 4. Confirm, and you're done. You get 3 free hypes every week, and every hype pushes this video higher on the leaderboard so more people can discover it. And if you hype often, you can even earn a hype star badge showing you're one of this channel's top supporters. While you're at it, don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on new stories and tips made just for our community. Take a moment, tap hype, hit like, and make sure you're subscribed. Thank you for being here. You bring warmth to this space just by showing up.